and welcome back to another exciting episode of our podcast. I am your host Orgo Das, and this podcast is brought to you by Praghya, the AI Analytics Club of SCIT. Praghya is a platform that empowers students to explore data-driven technologies and transform raw data into meaningful insights through collaborative tools, technologies, and industry exposure. So, the topic for today is something that affects each and every one of us on a daily basis, which is governance and public systems, but through a powerful new lens. And the topic for today is AI in governance and how artificial intelligence is reshaping public decision making, digital trust, and citizen engagement. So today we have someone truly special among us, Mr. Sisodia, an alumnus of Symbiosis Center for Information Technology of the batch 2012 to 14. Mr. Jay combines the digital and AI-enabled systems. He also holds some of the globally accredited accreditations across the cybersecurity domain, including CISSP, CISA, CDPSE, an ISO lead auditor, and a member of ISACA, reflecting his deep expertise in information security, risk management, data privacy, and regulatory alignment. Across his career, he has partnered with multiple organizations to strengthen governance frameworks, protect sensitive data, and build a long-term trust in the digital systems, making his perspective especially relevant as governments increasingly adopt AI-driven platforms. It gives me immense pleasure to have someone like him with us today. So please join me in welcoming Mr. Jay Sisodia. Thank you, sir, for joining in.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, sir. It makes me really happy since you are an alumni of SCIT itself and you were once in our shoes. So it's kind of a reminiscing there to revisit the college. Thank you, sir. So I would like to start this podcast with a question, which is, what initially motivated you to focus your career on the intersection of technology, cybersecurity, and governance instead of staying within the technical or enterprise domain?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I'm a computer science engineer by the background.
Yes.
And then when I joined SCIT as a fresher, I didn't know much about the managerial side of things. But the exposure that I got here after interacting with certain startups, certain companies, certain industry leaders, made me think that the human aspect of technology is more important than the backend systems. Because in a way, the backend systems are really important, but they are kind of rule-based systems. If you know the algorithm, if you know the logic, they will start functioning in a certain way. But when it comes to the people aspect of things, the human aspect of things become more subjective. And that's where I think you need more expertise and more controls, more different kind of controls, more creativity to make sure that the overall environment is secure. And that's when I joined Deloitte as an external auditor. When we started, or when we used to audit these applications, or when I still audit these applications, what I realize is it's not usually the technology or the code that is insecure or that is vulnerable. It's actually the people who are using and how they are using this technology is the weakest link in the chain. Right. And that's what governance solves, because it's at an intersection of people, process, technology, and then spreading awareness as a whole. So I think that made me realize that it's a good career to have.
Right. Thank you. It was really insightful. So moving on, my next question to you is related to understanding AI in governance. So from a governance and security lens, how would you explain AI in governance to a non-technical set of audience in a practical way, since some of the viewers who would be watching this podcast may come from a non-technical background and they would find it very hectic to wrap their heads around AI in governance, how AI plays a role. So how do you explain that to them?
Yeah. So in governance, AI in governance is a very niche area, a very special topic. And if I want to explain it to someone who is not very familiar with this, I would say it's a decision support system. So it's like a second brain of yours. It's helping you assess the environment, it's helping you assess the technology, it's helping you assess the processes, and then it's also helping you analyze these things, come up with them action points, and then helping you make the decision. What AI in governance should not be is the decision maker. Because if AI becomes a decision maker, then the whole slew of risks and issues start coming up in terms of fairness, equity, biasness, and all that stuff. So that's why I think AI, if we perceive AI or if we consider AI or we utilize AI as a secondary brain or a secondary decision support system, yeah, I think it can really complement what we are doing in the whole function.
So, according to you, which governance areas should adopt AI cautiously rather than rapidly?
Yeah. So to answer this question, I would really take and I would really encourage the listeners who are especially from this field or some students, so to learn more about the EU AI Act, because it actually provides you with a good framework on to how to understand stuff. And to answer your question, what EU AI Act says is that there is a certain category of systems, and these categories have been decided based on the risk. The highest risk systems are the ones where they've given a very good example that if a system or if an AI system, for example, starts scoring humans based on how they look, how they perceive things, how they talk, how they listen, then it starts becoming a problem, right? You are now giving scores to people.
Right.
So when it comes to human, their integrity, their day-to-day life, it's very, very important to be very cautious in terms of how you are using AI, because it can always it can become have a snowball effect in terms of the issues that you're having. And that's why we should also have a human in the loop concept, that whenever it's completely fine, I'm actually encouraging that you use AI, but you should have a human in the loop who is actually making sure that AI is functioning based on the boundaries and the parameters that have been decided by the society for it to function.
Right. That's really interesting. So moving on, so my next question to you is related to automation and accountability. So as we know, in today's world, governments are increasingly automating a lot of processes using AI. So where should the boundary lie between automation and human oversight in public systems?
Yeah. So considering the governments as a whole, they're not known for being very efficient. So first of all, I would say that have automation as much as possible. You have to be efficient. You have to save our tax. We are giving you so much tax, so you have to save some money of ours, right? So I would really encourage them to go for automation. But yes, it's very important because now you're dealing with human lives and society norms. So when this whole function, when you start again coming back to the EU AI Act, right? When it comes to or the degree of human involvement can vary from different functions to functions. For example, if we go with defense,
right,
you would want a human in the loop in every minute step if an AI system is integrated to a missile defense, right? You don't want AI to take decisions on your own. But yes, we would really want AI to go free flow and understand the vulnerabilities in the whole system. So if I have an AI bot or if I have an AI system that can walk through all the government systems and figure out what vulnerabilities are there, I would really like that AI system to really go and use its capability to the max with minimal human involvement so that it can come up with a list of vulnerabilities. And then what you do with those vulnerabilities is on the human to decide. So it's very important to understand the concepts of human in the loop, human on the loop, and human in command. And depending on the severity and criticality of the function that you are trying to automate within the government or in the companies also, yeah, the degree of human involvement should vary.
Right. That's a great answer, sir. So next, so in relation with this, the answer you gave, what risks emerges when accountability becomes unclear due to automated decision making?
Yeah. So it's a very common problem that we are seeing in the industry, and that also applies to the government organizations. Nobody knows who owns AI, right? IT team says that I don't own AI because I am not the one who is creating it, or I don't know which functions are using AI. Engineering says that I am responsible for my own function. Risk and compliance they cannot take ownership of all the functions of the organization. So where does it, who actually owns this AI? And then if an AI makes a decision which starts impacting the company's functions, processes, or if we talk about the government, the actual society as a whole, who eventually becomes responsible. So it's a problem that it's yet to be solved, but what I can come up of, maybe there are a couple of solutions that we can think of. Either you set the tone from the top that the CEO of the company should own this system or the board should own this system, and then it should flow to the different departments. The second point can be you have the system owners. You identify the function owners, the system owners, and those are responsible for owning every aspect of that AI system, so that clear accountability has to be set up. See, if we do not have accountability, it's not, if you do not set up accountability and everybody says, no, I do not own this system, you cannot save yourself in case of any legal implication. The codes will still make you accountable. So it's better that we create a well-defined RACI structure and identify the owners and who are going to be accountable in this aspect.
Yes, that answers my question. Thank you, sir. So moving on, my next question is related to data privacy and security. So as we know that AI governance is based heavily on large-scale citizen data.
Mm-hmm.
So how risky is it for AI systems to allow to decide automatically what data is collected and prioritized?
You see, it's very risky.
Yes.
Because when it comes to AI and when it comes to AI governance, there's a very important pillar that that we should all remember, which is the fairness, equity, and biasness. If we allow AI systems to decide what data should they take, and then should they take decisions on their objective, then it becomes high risky, because you don't know what sort of tuning has been done for those AI models, or even if you know, you can never be sure that whether it will still align to that tuning or the tuning that you have done or the parameters that you have decided. Just take an example. If we allow an AI system to decide, say, of people who are committing crimes, and if it is being tuned in a certain way that, if we take an example, it will only pick up people from, say, North India, then the results that it will come or the decisions that it will take, if you ask any further questions based on the data, it will only give a negative impression of people from North India. The same case has happened actually in US. US has a lot of people from different countries, and there was a study done of traffic fines, and it found that it was only highlighting people from the Asian background, the people from Chinese descent or Japanese descent, because it was only identifying people who had smaller eyes. So if we have such kind of a data and based on which we are taking future decisions, then it becomes a problem. So when we are creating or identifying the data sets, a human should definitely be in the loop, and a human should be actually accountable to making sure that there is the fairness, equity, and biasness is taken care of.
Right. So another question in relation with what you answered. So from a security standpoint of view, does the AI introduces any new vulnerabilities that governments must be prepared for?
Yes. So because what AI has done, if we talk about the core concept of it, it has just 100x the speed of things that are happening. It also applies to the cybersecurity aspect of things. People who did not know how to code, or people who did not know how to use any technology but they actually know English or any other language, they can now use AI by just their knowledge of English to actually exploit these systems. So it's not about the new vulnerabilities, it's about the number of threat actors and the speed by which they are acting. It has increased exponentially. And that's where we have to make sure, the governments have to make sure that they are on track, they keep themselves updated, and then just to make sure that these threat actors, these vibe coders the attacks from these vibe coders are prevented. And the second thing is, obviously there are new vulnerabilities that have come up. A couple of examples are, there are new prompt injection attacks that are happening. There are two new CVs actually got declared yesterday, that there have been Chrome extensions that are being used. I was talking about in my talk yesterday as well, that people are, they just read all your data and then they use that data to train themselves. And if this thing happens to the government systems, it's our data that is being captured by these companies who are not actually based out of India. So they are in a way breaching Indian laws as well. So these new vulnerabilities, the only thing that the government or the government organizations can do is keep track of these new updates that are happening every week, and just make sure that the systems, there's actually a very good monitoring system to identify any anomalies that are happening.
Right. Yeah, that answers my question. So moving on, my next question is based on bias, ethics, and public impact. So when AI systems trained on historical data begins influencing governance decisions, how serious is the risk of reinforcing existing policy or social biases, and what impact can this have on the public trust in governance?
Yeah. So I think it has to start with historical data. So I would not blame the government to not use historical data. But yes, I would also encourage them, or it's a best practice to make sure that the data reflects the actual things in the society. For example, if we only use historical data, and I will take just a very lightweight example, that our parents' generation, they used to like ghazal. But if we talk about Gen Z, they want to go to Coldplay concert or new concerts, right? So the reflection of the hobbies of this generation and the previous generation is hugely different. And if the government starts framing the policies on the priorities of the previous generations, it's not reflecting the priorities of this generation, right? The government is for the people, and the people. So that's why the data that the AI is using should reflect the priorities of its demography, which is mostly the young people. And that's why it's good to have historical data and to get some context, but it's also very important to keep on updating it to make sure that the actual reflections of the societal norms and the changes that are happening in the society are captured in that AI system.
Right. So, based on your answer, another question I'd like to ask in relation. So, in such cases, who should be held responsible for detecting, correcting, and being accountable for the bias in the public AI systems? And how easily can trust be restored once it's damaged?
Yeah. So I'll answer the second part of the question.
Sure.
Once the trust is damaged, it's very difficult to restore, especially because what is happening in the current world right now.
Right.
It's very difficult to first of all create trust, and if you break it, then it's more difficult to recreate it, right? So you have to make sure that the base that you are building upon is very, very strong, and if the base is strong, then you can start building upon the trust. And to answer your first question, sorry, can you just
Sure. In such cases, who should be held responsible for detecting, correcting, and being accountable for the biases that exist in the public AI systems?
Yeah, so I'll answer your second question first. It's very difficult to recreate the trust.
Right.
If you have created the trust and then you break it, the society will not trust you as a whole, especially with what is going on in the world as a whole.
Right.
Now, coming on to the first question. This problem, as I said before, is being solved in the companies as well as in the government. Nobody actually knows who owns these systems, who owns the AI, because nobody actually is able to define what are the capabilities of AI. So, in order to start with this, in order to address this whole problem, government or companies or larger companies, they should clearly identify there can be two solutions. Either you have a dedicated department or a function which is only responsible for managing the data, so that any mishappenings or any adventurous things that happen or any anomalies are detected, that the people from that department can be held accountable. It actually creates the sense of ownership, because of which the quality of the overall system will also increase. And same thing applies to the companies as well. There are two options. Either you create a dedicated function, like we used to have a chief data officer in bigger companies, or a data engineering teams separately. You should also have a separate function for AI. Or the second option is, which we also implemented in my previous employers, that you have a dedicated AI specific person within every department who is responsible for managing the underlying infrastructure, which includes the data and the algorithm as well of that specific department. And those people, dedicated people, should talk to each other in their own committee. So you have a steering committee of the people from various departments who are responsible for their respective departments, and they are talking to each other to discuss the best practices, responsibility, accountability, and how to bring the whole system up.
Yeah, that answers my question. So moving on, my next question is related to inclusion and digital equity. So AI-based governance systems often assumes a certain level of digital literacy. How can governments ensure that the rural population, the elderly citizens, and the non-tech savvy users are not excluded?
Yeah, I think that's a very important question, especially for India, because we have so many languages, and most of these AI systems are American systems, even though they have support for Hindi and some major Indian languages. but still there's a lot of population that is missing out because they speak in their local language, and even from the literacy stage. So that's why, remember we were talking about the data, the underlying data, and based on which the AI is taking the decision.
Yes.
Right now what is happening is it's majorly urban India who is interacting with these systems.
Right.
It's not reflecting the actual society's norms or the overall population, these systems. So whatever decisions that come out of these systems will automatically be biased, right? They will automatically be biased towards urban India or the people who speak English. So that's why it's very important, in order to have a full inclusion of the overall society, there can be certain things that can be done. You should have your own in-house AI system which can interact in the local language, in the local dialects, which understands these dialects. And there should be a whole initiative to build these repositories. I think this is already happening in the Indian government. There are some NGOs which are also doing it, but it has to be done at a very much large scale. And the second piece is, we should not restrict ourselves just to chat interfaces. There should also be interaction based on sensors. For example, if there's an old age woman who wants to interact with the AI, it should be more voice mode based. It should be more human hand based, gestures based. So there can be multiple ways in which can do it. I think we are doing it, but the speed is a little bit slow.
Right. Yeah. So again, what you answered, based on that, another question I would like to ask, which is, can these AI-based interfaces actually make governance more inclusive, or do they risk creating further distance?
It depends on our approach. Right? If we use the AI systems like they're currently being used now, it will risk creating more differences in the society. So it's very important to reflect the society in the data that is being used in the AI systems. So it's an opportunity as well as a risk, and we should consider it as a very big responsibility. Right. That the approach that we are taking and the foundation that we are building for the future projects, for the future application of this AI, we have to take it in a with a very strong sense of responsibility, because if we do not do that, there is a very high risk of creating differences within the society because of the decisions that these AI systems are going to take for us, or they are going to provide the inputs that these AI systems are going to provide to us.
Yeah, that answers my question. So moving on, my next question to you is based on AI in crisis management. So in the case of a crisis such as financial instability, pandemics, and natural disasters, often the AI systems are deployed very rapidly. So how should government balance speed and responsibility while using the AI systems in such high pressure environments?
Yeah. So if I'm a corporate guy, so I will consider it from a business continuity and disaster recovery things that we do in the company. Right. If we apply the same logic to the government, I'll first explain the logic. If you deploy an AI system in case of a crisis, you have to make sure that the deployment, like in any software or any application, the deployment should be done cohesively. It has to make sure that it is not just capturing just for this. It is not being done just for the sake of doing it. It has to be, for example, if a crisis is happening in Delhi, in Pune, and in some small city in Madhya Pradesh, and if the AI system is only capturing data from Delhi and Pune and not that small city, then the decisions that we are going to take will be based on only these two cities and not the smaller cities which are also impacted by the crisis. So the deployment has to be done in an exhaustive way, so that whatever data it fetches, and the decisions that it is taking, it's reflecting what is actually happening on the ground. Same applies to the companies as well. Whatever softwares or tools that you're deploying and the data it captures to take the decisions, it has to reflect, it has to capture the overall scale of the crisis. And then you can start taking the actual decisions. So I would really encourage, and we should definitely deploy systems like AI and other decision supporting systems, but it has to be done in a manner that it reflects the actual scale on the ground, right, which sometimes people lack or companies lack.
Yes, that answers my question. Thank you, sir. So my next question is related to the certifications and learning. So for someone who is looking to start a career in AI and governance, what certifications or learning pathways would you recommend to both students as well as who are on the go to like corporate, as well as the working professionals who are looking to upskill or transition to this space?
Yeah. Yeah, so there are multiple certifications that are available, but theory can only take you somewhere.
Right.
So the way I'm learning about it is, you have to make sure that you first of all obviously have to start with theory. There are multiple certifications that you can go for. ISO 42001 is one of them. Understanding NIST AI RMF is one of them. And once you have gone through this theory and understanding the regulations, so EU AI Act, the UK's guidelines, Chinese guidelines, so understanding the perceptions from the government, how they are, what are their expectations, the frameworks as a whole, so that you can structure your thinking. Once you have done that, then I would really encourage, and this is what I did. Let's just pick up a case study. Let's just pick up a scenario. You can use ChatGPT to create one scenario for you, or you can use Gemini, or you can just look at whatever cases are happening across the globe. Like I was talking about the Deloitte or the chatbot case yesterday in my talk. Just pick up that and see from a governance perspective, how will I solve this case based on what I have learned in theory, and then just share it with the world. Just put it as a LinkedIn post and start getting feedback. So because this is such a new topic that everybody is learning, even people like me who claim to be an expert, nobody is an expert. It's a very new topic. So it's very important to build a community around it. Once you study, share it with the world, start getting feedback, and based on the feedback, start brainstorming and start implementing it more and more. So that's how I think as a whole, the whole community can bring it. But yes, to start with, 42001, NIST AI RMF, and EU AI Act are the three things that I would really encourage.
Okay. Yeah, that answers my question. So, before we wrap up, could you share one experience from your career that changed how you think about the trust or responsibility in digital governance?
Yeah. So it has happened actually in my current role. So I'm leading the governance and the compliance, the GRC function for a company. And what we have seen is that earlier I used to be more of an idealistic, like, let's just implement the controls, we have to do things right, and the companies have to spend money so that they can implement the right tools, we need the best in class tools. But now I have understood the business aspect of things as well. Why do companies do governance? What is the need of GRC? Ultimately, the goal is to do business, right? And the companies are implementing GRCs or spending money on GRC because, first of all, obviously they don't want to get penalized by the government, but they also want to provide trust to their potential customers. So how will they do that? Will they just do that implementing the controls? No. You have to implement the controls, but you also have to show it to the world. So one thing that I've learned is having something like a trust center, having something to showcase on your website or show it to the world that yes, you are serious about security, you understand the regulations, you understand that how critical security is to your company, and then this is how you're doing it. So showing people just take things more ideally, but you have to show what you're doing to the world as well. And this is a very important aspect that companies sometimes miss. Either they overshow it or they do a lot of things, but they do not show. So having a right mix of things and showing it to the world that this is how you are serious will actually in turn allow you to get more business and get more bigger companies and governments to trust you for business. So I think this is something that I've learned recently and just changed my perspective on the GRC function as a whole.
Yeah, that answers my question. So thank you so much, Jay, for sharing your insights and perspective with us today. To all our listeners tuning in, thank you for tuning in to this podcast on AI-based governance. For more conversations like this, please don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. Praghya will continue to bring such conversations that helps to not only students but also professionals learn and explore emerging technologies while thinking critically about responsibility and impact. This is your host, August Das, and this podcast is brought to you by Praghya, the AI Analytics Club of SCIT.